Hi, I'm Jessica.
And I'm Luke.
And we're part of the developer relations team for Actions on Google. And welcome to Behind the Actions, where today we're going to be building a really fun action with Luke.
We thought that we would show off some of the cool things that you can do in terms of user affordances by building a Silicon Valley horoscope app.
That's awesome. But wait, Luke, what are user affordances? What does that mean?
That's a great question. So user affordances are the sorts of things that you put in your application or action to make it just smooth and easy for the user to get what they want out of the thing that you've built.
I love that. Yeah, it's all about making it easier for the user. Fantastic.
So today, in terms of user affordances, we're going to include some cool things like suggestion chips and user storage to remember specific things about each individual user as they return to us.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And we're going to nest this inside this crazy project that's going to replace the normal zodiac signs of Capricorn and Scorpio with a few Silicon Valley archetypes.
Like what?
Like product manager and executive and engineer.
And designer. I love it. That sounds like fun. So we're going to have custom horoscopes for these different archetypes. They're signs.
Right.
And giving them a horoscope that is going to be consistent with the day.
Right.
So it'll be the same horoscope every day, or not every day, I'm sorry. For that day, it'll be the same one, but every day will be different.
Exactly. Just like you would expect a horoscope to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if you're not familiar with the tools of like Dialogflow or using intents, we're going to make that assumption that you've already seen episode 1. So if you don't know about that, please go to our Behind the Actions episode 1 and check that out. So we're going to start off by jumping in and building our first project on the Actions on Google console. So here, we're going to click on that, make a project.
Yeah.
And we're going to call this horoscope.
Horoscope is very hard to spell.
Totally.
For me, personally.
Me too. Did I spell that right?
I think so.
Okay, sweet. Okay, now create the project. And what's happening here is it's just creating a project on the Actions on Google console, and then it's going to drop us right into kind of the home page of the project itself.
Yeah. And then we'll have a bunch of options, and Jessica's going to expertly navigate these options to get us all set up.
Yeah, so we're going to have to pick a category. We're going to scroll down and do conversational because this is kind of a unique demo that we're doing. And then in here.
And then from here, what I like to do when I'm building these sorts of things is have 2 tabs open at the same time. On one side, I'll have the web simulator, and that will let me like test out my voice action while I'm actually building it. On the other side, I'll have the Dialogflow console. So Dialogflow is this really great tool that we have for building out natural language applications. It lets us set intents and entities and handle context and all kinds of other cool things that you can learn about from some of our other videos. Lovely.
There we go. So now we created and so we create the actual project.
Yeah. So you don't actually need to write any code at all to use Dialogflow for managing natural language processing. But if you do want to be especially cool and write some code, you can just go over to that fulfillment section on the left.
Yeah.
And
well, before we go there, let's change our welcome so then we can have it hit our code.
Do you want to do that first?
Yeah, let's do that first.
Okay,
and then we
good.
can show what that is.
Yeah.
And so we'll go into our welcome intent. And then in here, there's training phrases, all that great jazz. We're going to scroll all the way down. And we don't want these to be our greetings.
That's right.
Right?
These being the text responses there.
And so I'm going to delete that.
Boop, boop.
And then we're going to add fulfillment for this intent.
So Jessica just toggled on the enable webhook call for this intent switch. And what that does is it says, okay, when a user hits the default welcome intent, I'm going to shuttle them along to my own code for handling what the action should say in response. So Jessica's just going to click on the fulfillment section on the left-hand navigation and toggle that disabled switch to enabled. And what this is going to let us do is build out the fulfillment code that we need for our action right here in the web simulator or web console itself. That means we don't need to stand up our own server on GCP. You don't need to think about any of that stuff. All you need to do is go in here and start coding.
Exactly. And I'm just copy pasting from our boilerplate code that's on our GitHub repo. And so here we have the intent of the default welcome intent, and then we have com.ask hello world. So let's change that to be something a little more appropriate.
Oh, that's a great idea. What should we use? It should be something like, welcome to Silicon Valley Horoscope.
Welcome to Silicon.
Silicon.
With no E, right?
No
so
E.
Valley Horoscope.
I actually had no idea that those are 2 different words until Jessica educated me last week.
To get started,
just tell us your sign.
Just tell us your sign. Sweet.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, and so now we'll hit deploy. That way it could spin up Firebase for us. So it's going to push all our code over there. It's going to do it's going to install all the libraries, and then it's going to grab, once it's deployed and live, it's going to grab the URL and then actually connect it to Dialogflow. So it might take a couple of seconds for all that magic to happen, and that's A-okay.
Usually when you start up this for the first time, it'll take longer for the first deployment than any subsequent deployment.
Oh, totally, because it's doing all of that heavy lifting, and then after that, it's just pushing up the code, and it makes it a lot faster.
That's right, easy peasy. Now that that's all deployed, we're going to go over into the Actions on Google Web Simulator to test out the changes that we've made to our action.
Yep. So we're going through integration. That way we can connect this to our action. And this is going to drop us into the Actions on Google Simulator.
Right. That'll give us a nice little simulator, not just for the little smart speakers that you might have sitting around your house, but also for phones and for smart displays.
Okay, so now we can test it out.
Yeah.
All right. Here's the test version of my test app. Welcome to Silicon Valley Horoscope.
Nice.
To get started, just tell us your sign.
So ideally, the user is going to be able to say their
Let's
sign.
Let's say it, see what happens.
That's all out.
Product manager.
I didn't get that. Can you repeat?
So what's happening here is our default fallback intent is being triggered because we don't actually have an intent set up to handle when the user says, I'm a product manager, I'm a designer, I'm an engineer.
Yeah, but most likely people are not going to necessarily know what options they have. So
That's
maybe
true.
we should do something to let the user know these are the options that they have to pick from.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
Cool. I'm thinking suggestion chips.
That's great. So if Jessica's going to go back into our code, and up at the very top where she imports the Actions on Google library, she's also going to import suggestions. So suggestions are super, super cool.
So it's going to be Dialogflow, common,
Comma.
and then suggestions.
Yeah.
Capitalized. Cool.
And so those suggestion chips are going to show up if you're looking at this on your phone or on a smart display as tiny little lozenges at the bottom that a user can click on.
Really longitudinal. That's cute. Suggestions. And so this is going to take in an array of...
Just an array of strings.
Cool. So we have PM.
Uh-huh.
Then what else do we have?
We have engineers.
And
Engineer. Singular. Yeah, singular.
Sweet. And then what else do we got?
Designer.
Designer.
And maybe executive.
Executive.
I think.
C-U-T-I-V-E. Spelling is hard.
Spelling is hard.
Sweet. So we just have an array of the options.
And we want to close that parens, and then we'll be good.
Close.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. There we go. This is why I love pair programming, because I always forget something. Okay.
Sweet.
And so now let's deploy this
Yeah.
and see how that looks.
Oh, we want opening parens there too.
That's why there was an error here. Sweet. There we go. I can't stop the deployment.
So we're going to use this time to think about what we want the user interface of the action to be.
Yeah. So if I'm the action and I go, welcome, Luke, to Silicon Valley Horoscope, tell me which horoscope you want, right? And so I'm going to have these little these little suggestion chips of PM, engineer, an executive, and designer, right? And then you'll be able to choose from that. Right?
And I will say, for example, engineer, and then you will say...
And then actually give a really cool, customized for engineers horoscope.
Right. Customized for engineers. And it's a horoscope, so we probably want to have a different one every day.
Yeah, so we'll want to have to do that. So I think we should just focus on building out the response.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll need to make a new suggestion or a new intent in Dialogflow to capture whether they are saying the different types of signs that they could choose from.
You're totally right. And we're going to need to make some way of capturing which of those signs it is, right? So that kind of sounds like it's an entity sort of solution.
Yeah, definitely. So, expected that versus that. Oh, because I added.
Oh, there's two.
Wait, it's like this. No. I'm missing. Oh, I know what I'm missing. I'm missing.
The second parens.
There we go.
So many parens.
I know. Yeah. Okay.
Come on,
there we go. Okay, cool. So we'll go over here and then we'll create new intent. And this one should be called something to the effect of like horoscope,
Horoscope.
right?
Select sign. Select sign.
Well, they've
User
already
sign,
selected
change
it,
sign.
so they're giving us the.
So when the default welcome intent, we say, or the action says, why don't you tell me what your sign is?
Yeah.
And then the user says, I'm a designer or whatever. So that thing where they're saying I'm a designer is we want that to trigger this intent, right? So that's
So
them declaring sign or sign, maybe just sign. Select
Just
sign.
sign?
Select
Sign.
sign. Sign. Sign's simple.
Sure. Awesome. Okay, so we have that, and if we go to our training phrases, we could put in something like PM, right? Because that's one of the suggestion chips.
Right. We should probably have all of the suggestion chips verbatim here in our training phrases.
Right? But right here, Dialogflow doesn't know what a PM is, and
That's
that
true.
it's important to us. So let's actually delete this intent and actually make an entity that you were mentioning before.
That's a great idea.
Okay. And that's usually what happens to me as I'm building things. I'm like, oh, I actually need this. So let's go to entities and let's make a new one. And so this entity should be
Sign.
sign, right? So this is the sign. And so we have PM, which could be set as
Product manager.
PM
Yeah.
or product manager.
Building a good action is kind of like a samba. You're like a little bit forward and a little bit back, and you're kind of like learning the interface as you go along. It's a more inherently social sort of thing than programming is normally, I think.
Designer, engineer, PM, and then executive.
Executive,
right?
yeah.
Executive. Sweet.
Sounds
Okay.
good to
Do we need
me.
any synonyms for these?
Maybe for executive, like exec. I hear people
Ooh,
using
how do you
that
spell
one.
exec?
EXEC, maybe? Yeah, that sounds good.
Sweet,
And
okay.
then under engineer, maybe something like developer or
Ooh,
programmer.
Developer.
Because this is Silicon Valley.
Sweet. I think that looks good.
Sounds great to me.
Okay, so let's save this. So we've made a custom entity. Now we're going to go to our intents and then make the actual intent that we have.
Right.
And so here, do we still want to call this sign?
We already called our intent.
Right now, that,
yeah,
that feels like a little.
Let's call it select sign.
There we go. Select sign. Like that.
Lovely.
And then let's add some training phrases.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is where we should have PM.
Oh, look, it already picked it up.
Sweet.
So Dialogflow is really smart. If you've declared an entity type with a bunch of specific synonym strings, it'll know when you go in and start adding those kinds of strings to your training phrases of your intents, that it should recognize those entities and extract them from the user utterance. Yeah.
So I'm just giving some random ones. So one where they just say the sign itself. So PM, I'm a developer. I am a designer. Give me the executive one. So that we have a little variety in the responses.
Yeah.
Ideally, you want 10 to 15. But for this, it's a demo, so we're going to keep it as this.
Let's make sure that we have all of the strings that we used explicitly there, like engineer.
Ooh. Oh, well, I have designer on here, so it should capture it. But we could totally do that. Engineer.
Lovely.
Sweet.
Lovely.
Okay.
And each of those entities has already been automatically detected by Dialogflow, so we should have some confidence that that's like going pretty well. So what Jessica's doing now is she's saying, hey, if the user doesn't actually give you a sign, then make sure that we prompt them to.
So we'll do a reprompt, and then here will be, please pick from the following.
That sounds great. So in your prompts, you want to provide a little affordance to the user about the options that they can select from. So we might say something like, I'm sorry I didn't get that. Did you mean to say engineer or something like that? Or you could choose from among product manager, executive, engineer, and designer.
That sounds a lot more nicer than what I wrote. That's okay. So from here, we don't want to add responses here.
Right.
Because then they won't be dynamic. So let's add in the fulfillment for this intent. Sweet. And we'll hit save.
Lovely, lovely. So Jessica and I have been thinking about this for a couple of days, and we might have put together a little code before the show that will do the horoscope composition magic for us. So Jessica's just going to deploy the code now.
Yes.
And what it's doing is every sign and every day will have a unique horoscope that's assigned to that sign on that day. So if you come on Tuesday and ask the horoscope, system for your horoscope and you're an engineer, you will always get the same answer for that day until the next day, and it will be a different one.
Yeah.
We're doing this because, for a few reasons. The first is that that's actually the way that horoscopes work. And the second is, like, at a meta level, we wanted to show off how you can dynamically compose varying responses. Because in a voice user interface, unlike a graphical user interface, if the user gets exactly the same response over and over and over again, it can be quite jarring.
Yeah, it's frustrating sometimes. Definitely.
Let's describe a little bit of what we're doing here.
Yeah, so we've added a couple of libraries that we'll be using.
So the salient one up at the top, or the salient 2 that we're doing, are the chance library, which lets you come up with a random, really just a random number, or selecting a random element from an array, which doesn't sound like that fancy, except that chance uses the twister algorithm. It's a pseudo-random number generator, such that you can hand it a seed, which is just any string or number, and it will always generate exactly the same sequence of random outputs after that, which is very useful to us because we want to make sure that if you come on Tuesday, like we said before,
it stays the same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're using Chance for that. And Handlebars is a lovely templating library that we can use to kind of swap in different options for the same, like, bit of a horoscope.
Yep. So I'm just scrolling down, that way people could see. Each horoscope is built with 3 different elements. So there's a feelings element, and a advanced element, and then opportunity, which is very much like a horoscope. That's kind of how they are.
And we're just concatenating each of those sentences one onto the other to compose the response.
Sweet. Okay, so it's been deployed.
Lovely.
So let's go and jump in and see if this works. So now we're in our test simulator. I'm going to restart this.
Restart that.
And then touch my test app.
Sure, getting the test version of my test app. Welcome to Silicon Valley Horoscope. To get started, just tell us your sign.
So what is the sign?
Let's say, yeah, that sounds great. PM.
PM.
Your horoscope for today is everything is behind schedule and you feel anxious. Ignore that. By being honest with your team, they will take pity on you and maybe ship on time for once. Would you like to hear the horoscope for another sign?
It works. This
That's
is
awesome.
insane.
Yay! So we did have it on the visual part, and so let's see how the with the audio part and not the visual.
So Jessica's gonna,
Let me
So
just reset
Jessica's cursor right there is over the 3 possible display options that you can have when using the web simulator. That can be mobile on the left. The center is a smart speaker, and the thing on the right is a smart display.
Yeah, I just muted it so then I wasn't overlapping what you're talking about, but you can see here, this is what the visual be. Here are our suggestion chips to make it easier for it. So I feel like we should do the engineer one.
Oh, let's do the engineer.
Yeah, let's see what that one is.
Your horoscope for today is a great day. Use your energy to carry you forward. Don't stress too much about that P0. Today is a new chance to fix all those horrible things you did last quarter. It's a good time to refactor all that code you pushed last Friday before anyone notices. Would you like to hear the horoscope for another sign?
And now
This is awesome.
we have the suggestion chips down at the bottom that'll let you go back and forth.
Yeah, and we did something special with this one, with this suggestion chip, where it's grabbing whatever current horoscope that you're checking out. It's not going to provide it as a suggestion chip. So we're actually editing that part out, which is great. That way the user, generally you're not going to want to hear the same thing over and over again. So that way it makes it just easier for the user.
Just another one of those, like, little affordances, like we said, to the user to make their interaction with the app that much easier.
Exactly. Sweet. Okay,
So I noticed that we also have a no thanks suggestion chip down there at the bottom. Does that do anything yet?
let's click on it.
I didn't get that. Can you say it again?
So this, again, triggered our default fallback intent because it didn't match one of the intents we had before. We want to make an easy exit route for users once they've found the horoscope or horoscopes that they wanted.
Exactly. So it sounds like we have to make like our end intent.
That sounds good.
The intent to finish the things. So let's go back to Dialogflow.
Yeah.
And then in here, we're going to go to intents, and we'll create a new intent. And here, we're going to call this one end.
That sounds great.
Sweet. And for this one, we're going to need events, I believe. And this one is called actions underscore, I believe.
Intent underscore cancel in all caps.
Intent and then cancel.
Doop,
Nope, no, I was right the first time. I don't count.
CEL.
CEEL.
Yes, ma'am.
Sweet. There we go.
All right.
Okay.
And we want to give it a training phrase. That's something like "no thanks" or "I'm done."
What does this do?
Oh, I'm so.
I know, we get really
I'm so glad you
excited.
asked. So, in addition to training phrases triggering these things, triggering these sorts of events, we want. We also have things like events, which are things that don't have to be a user utterance. It could be something else about the program itself. Like after a user tries to sign in to an external service, we'll get an event back saying that the user has successfully authenticated with this external service.
Yeah, and this one in particular will override if somebody says exit or goodbye. Google Assistant automatically handles that. And so we want to go, no, don't just exit. We want to have our own custom exit. So we want to not greet the user. What's the opposite of greeting the user?
Aloha, the other side of aloha.
The other side of aloha to the user. We want to be able to capture that. And so this helps kind of override that functionality that Google Assistant gives us.
Exactly.
Which is a great one for if we didn't have that. It's good that it does. But since we know about this, let's do our own.
So we've got some training phrases that Jessica's added here. We've got our exit event that she's added. And then down at the bottom, we're just going to enable webhook fulfillment for this.
Okay.
And we'll go build ourselves a little exit handler.
Let me hit save.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we'll go into our code and scroll down. I'm going to put this actually after our welcome intent.
That
There we go.
feels thematically appropriate.
Yeah. And this one is called, was it capitalized?
I think you capitalized it, yeah.
I did, didn't I?
Yeah.
And what it's going to
And
take
then,
in.
so we'll build the callback, and the callback's going to take the conversation. And we could just say, adios, amigo, but we probably already know the user's sign, right? They've just told us that they're a designer or an engineer or something.
We do, don't we?
Yeah.
So we kind of, what would be great is if we could.
If we could use that in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we could say,
Right?
see you later, engineer.
That'd be fantastic.
I think that'd be pretty great.
Okay, so it seems like right here, let me just do com.end, or close, sorry. And then just put goodbye just to have this.
That sounds great. One of the.
Fantastic. So it sounds like to be able to do that, where we can go goodbye PM, goodbye engineer, is we need to save the actual piece of data.
Right. So how are we going to do that?
Right.
How do we save data in a conversation?
Well, I believe that there's a property
Oh.
that we could use.
Oh.
It's not great for, just a caveat, it's not a large amount of memory that you could use.
Right.
But something like this, where it's a simple short string, I think this would be really sweet, where it's the user storage.
Yeah, it's very. So there are two kinds of ways built in to our client library to save data. You can save data within a conversation, and you can save data between conversations.
Yes.
So the thing that Jessica's alluding to is something called com.user.storage. It's just right on the conversation object, and you can just add whatever you want there. The limit is that I think it's 10K of memory.
I
Something in
believe
that zone.
so. Something like that. I would check
So
the
it's
docs just
very,
to
very
make sure.
small. You shouldn't use it for any big things, but for little affordances like this, it's perfect.
Exactly.
So why don't we, in the select sign intent, go
Yeah.
ahead and save the sign that the user selected.
That sounds great. And so we do that by.
So before we say horoscope, we're going to want to say
There we go, right here.
com.user.storage. So user storage is actually just an object. And when you save a property on that object, it'll be saved in between conversations on the com object itself.
This is the long-term storage.
Yes.
Okay.
Between conversations.
What do we want to call this?
Let's just call it sign.
Sign.
Yeah.
And so we're going to set this to the sign that we're getting from the parameters.
I think that's brilliant.
Okay, perfect. And so since we've done that, now we could use that here.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we're gonna do an existence check, and we'll say if there is a sign, right?
Right.
So if conv.user.storage
Let's
sign.
grab that.
Oh, you're brilliant.
Right.
Much better engineer than me. And com.user.storage.
User.storage.
And that'll just yank the sign property right off of storage. And then we can
So-
say if sign.
If it exists.
Yeah. If we have sign. Then we're going to say conv.close, because we're leaving the conversation. See you next time. And then like whatever the thing is.
Com doc. Oh, I'm going to use this. Haha.
Do that.
There we go.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so we want to say see you next time.
See you next time. And then whatever their sign is. Right?
And sign.
Yeah. Lovely, lovely, lovely.
Sweet. And then if they don't have it.
Yeah, if we don't have the sign, then we'll want to say something kind of generic, just like see you next time.
Com.close. See you next time. Looks like I might have. How's that look?
Yeah. Want to close those curlies?
Yep.
And then...
Ooh, just one?
Oh, boy.
Oh, no, there's one. And then there's two.
There's
There we
two.
go. We have that one.
And then close parens, maybe, possibly,
Where?
at the end. All right. Lovely. I think so. Close parens. Yeah. Parens rather than curlies.
Ring.
All right.
There we go. Okay, so that looks good.
That looks pretty good. I'm feeling optimistic.
Okay, sweet.
right.
Then I'm going to hit deploy, and that way it could go out there. Okay, so
this strategy where we're remembering salient details about the user so that they don't have to enter the same thing over and over and over again is something that any advanced voice user interface designer is going to want to include in their applications.
yeah, well, it makes it feel just more personalized. It makes it feel like we know this action because as humans, we definitely personify some experiences. I know if I see anything with googly eyes and if it looks like there's a mouth, like I automatically add like a feeling that thing is a thing, a person. And so our actions are definitely fall into that category. People feel like, oh, it's something I know. So we could give that back. Sweet. Okay.
All right.
So it's deployed.
We'll go check it out, see if it all works.
Let's reset.
We'll talk to our test app.
All right, getting the test version of my test app.
Okay.
All right, so this is the first time that we've booted up the action after adding the com user storage bit. So Jessica's just going to choose one of the signs in order to save that thing to
Your
com's
horoscope
user
for
storage.
today is use
Mute that so you can keep going.
And then we're going to leave the conversation and come back and make sure that it actually worked. So if we say no thanks here,
recruiter. Great surprises come in unexpected packages. Would you like to hear the horoscope?
Okay, I wanted to make sure that was done. That way we could have the audio. Okay, so now we're going to click on no thanks.
yeah,
See you next time, designer.
nice.
It remembered. Wait, I'm not a designer, but that's okay.
So now that we have that, we can actually use it not just on that exit intent.
Ooh.
We can use it on the default welcome intent.
Oh my gosh, so when someone comes in the second time,
Yeah.
we could be like, I know who you are.
I know what your horoscope is.
Nice. Okay, perfect. So let's go back to Dialogflow and then let's go into our code, which we're here. Okay, cool. So we're going to go back to our welcome intent, which is up here.
Yeah.
And we're going to just
Take advantage of the
this?
fact that now we might actually know what the user's sign is.
Yeah, so instead of watching me type, just copy pasted some code in here. And so what's happening here, it's going to check to see if that sign exists in the storage. It's going to grab that.
Exactly, like we did last time. And it's going to do a fancy thing where it grabs the sign and then it capitalizes the first character. It's not super important that you follow everything that's happening on line 125. It's just a little fancy thing, little fancy JavaScript.
And then after that, we give them the horoscope because that's most likely what they want. If they're returning back to us, they're going to want to hear their horoscope. So we go, this is your horoscope already.
Yeah.
And if they're new, if we don't have their sign, then we still give them the generic welcome to Silicon Valley
Exactly.
horoscope.
Exactly.
Sweet. Okay, so let's deploy this, and then we can test that out.
So we're now getting kind of close to our ambitions for the project.
Yeah.
Right. We've shown you how to build in these suggestion chips as an affordance to the user. We've shown you how to handle exits more gracefully and like handling maybe some specific user data that you might have saved. We showed you how to save that user data and conv user storage between conversations. And now we're going back and sprucing up the actual default welcome intent itself based on whether or not you've met the user before.
Exactly.
All these things are going to help kind of create the magic of a voice user interface. And we want to avoid, if we can, kind of breaking the spell. by making the conversation too jarring.
Yeah, I love that. Sweet. So it's been deployed. Let's go to Actions on Google and test this out. So this should, because we've already been here before,
Right.
it should give me the designer one.
It's
Right?
exciting.
All right, getting the test version of my test app.
That's awesome. It did it.
Okay, cool. So it gave us back that we're a designer, and it gave us our horoscope. And then it still asked us a question if we want to hear something else, which is great. I'm going to put no thanks.
That sounds great.
See you next time, designer.
Sweet.
Awesome. I feel really good about this.
Yeah, I think we built exactly what we wanted. This is super cool.
Yeah, I'm super happy with this.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it.
If you enjoyed the show today, you can like and subscribe down below or comment and tell us what we messed up.
I know, I made lots of typos, so thank you so much for bearing with me. And please feel free to follow us on Twitter, on Actions on Google, and use the hashtag AoGDevs. That's where we publish a lot of our content. And we also have a Reddit community, too, and we publish there as well. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.